Good morning, gardening friends. It is hot today. It is 7:50 and it is 91 degrees already, hot and sticky, and I'm slathered down with mosquito spray. I do like my mosquito repellent for use on my deck, but unfortunately, since I'm going to be walking around, I had to spray myself down because they are out this morning. Today is actually Saturday, the 25th. I'm recording this today. I'm not going to release it until Sunday, the usual time I release my videos. But I'm doing this today because my opuntia is blooming and the flowers will be closed tomorrow. So I thought we'd take advantage of the opuntia blooms today. I have switched to iced tea. Unsweetened. I'm a northerner at heart. But been working quite a lot this week in the yard, usually early in the morning. By about 10 o'clock I'm done. Let's start here with the Nepenthes. I don't know if this one's going to do well. I see it seems like it's either yellowing or greening, one or the other. Yellowing is bad. It was, I guess, in more shade. Here it gets a little more sun, even though it's on the northern exposure of my house. And my Sarracenias are looking good. I did have to support one. The winds we got last week bent one of them over. And this Sarracenia is coming up nicely. I don't know about my caladiums, even though I popped them out of the pots. Probably didn't do them any good. I don't see any more of the ones that hadn't sprouted from last week. I haven't seen any new activity yet. So I'm kind of holding off for now, planting them in the yard until I figure how many I've got so I can plan accordingly. I wanted 40, but bought 41 bulbs, figuring I would lose one. And in any event, we'll keep them there until they sprout or rot, one or the other. You can see the flower of my horsetail. I did clean it up. My plumeria is doing nicely. And the sedum has just done extremely well. That's the pot from which I took all the cuttings that I spread around. I did have problems, I'll talk about it a little more later, in the ones I planted in the ground, because it's very easy when you're weeding around it, if it's a vining thing that goes under it, you can yank up the whole sedum while you're weeding. The birds have finally left my papyrus alone. I guess they're done fledging, so the mama doesn't have to keep an eye on them. I was going to get these planted before I did the video, but didn't happen. I wound up getting them from the grocery store. I thought white impatiens would look good under the sundial with the white and green caladiums filling in the bulk of the bed back there. These caladiums are still doing well. Like I say, they're kind of in a hold pattern until the rest of them sprout. My Iochroma has done really well. I'd say this is about 4 foot tall. Of course, it's in a pot. That helps. And you can see the caladiums I planted last week are really sprouting out. These are the Kathleen's. I don't see this golden chalice vine hasn't sprouted yet, but it will. The curry plant is doing well. The, let's see, what was this? This was the, oh, I just can't think of it right now. What's it say on the tag? Tarragon, French tarragon. That is not supposed to grow in our zone, so the heat of the summer may start knocking it back, and in that case I'll tuck it against the shade. I did notice this rose-scented geranium was becoming the worse for wear, so I put the sedum in its spot. Over here, this will get afternoon shade, and it seems to do better over here. It was wilting every day. You can see the coleus is looking good. I took some more cuttings of the coleus that were in the house in my front porch because they were getting leggy. And so right now they're in a vase in my kitchen. This Nepenthes is doing well. I did notice these are starting to flop, which it is a trailing plant, but it's kind of always a shock when it's been growing up, 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 and then suddenly everything flops down. Let's see what else of note is happening around here. The bananas, of course, are growing hand over fist. Got to be careful of the sunlight. I am 6 foot tall. This is the 6 foot mark right here. So they're already starting to provide good shade for all of these plants here. I may cut this leaf off, but it doesn't seem to be impeding the Loropetalum any right now. Although you can't see it, I did cut this hedge down by another, I'd say about a good 4 inches. So this is now a little bit below where I would like it to be. And so now I'm just waiting for it to sprout. Although I'll whisper it because I don't want the hedge to hear. If it doesn't make it, I found a replacement. I happened to go to a garden center this last week and noticed they had some small gardenias for a good price, because I'll need about a dozen of them. And that's the replacement if the boxwood doesn't come. I have gardenias in the front yard. I haven't yet to put them in the backyard. Well, I think I've told you the story. My backyard used to be pretty much all boxwoods, where the monkey grass is. And that got old fast. Yes, the boxwood hedges look pretty, but they do require a lot of maintenance. So I still have boxwood balls around here. As you can see, this used to be a tighter hedge here, but I've gradually thinned it out. I do like the structure of the boxwoods in the wintertime, because there's not a lot of structure in the winter. You know, the leaves will fall off of the hydrangeas, and of course the ferns will die back. So, you know, you've got monkey grass, aspidistra, and a few bushes. So the boxwoods do serve a useful purpose. Here's just another view of the bananas from the ground. Cycads have really leafed out. I watered everything good in the backyard. We haven't had any rain for a while, and none is expected until Tuesday. This little fountain looks good in the sunshine. My tortoise is still back here. I don't see him, but I know he's here because of the trails he leaves, as well as messing up his water bowl. He likes to paddle in the water bowl, so it always gets muddy. I think I had mentioned once before, this is a lady palm. It's sent out a shoot from the roots. I have tried re-rooting those, but really it has no roots over here. It's just a long stolon underground from the mother plant. They probably will get roots eventually, but I'm just going to let it fill out that spot. Ooh, the mosquitoes are swarming around me here. Thank God I've got my spray on. This begonia has done really well. This is the second year of that begonia. Ooh, you can see the mosquitoes. They're not lighting on me, which is good. This colocasia is doing well. I had that on the deck, and believe it or not, somehow a piece of it got under the deck, and it is coming up now against the wall from under my deck. Let's see, I did plant some more caladiums. They're just barely coming up. You can't really see them all that well, but little spikes here and there in the ground. I wanted this whole gap to be filled with caladiums, give it a little bit of color. Oh, let's not forget the pindo palm. The Pindo palm fruits are getting bigger. And there's more fruits up here and more there. And another space has opened up there. And another one's flowering over there. So this is really putting out its flowers. This Pindo was planted way too close. It was like the second or third palm that I planted here. It was planted way too close to the house. And so what I've been doing through the years is I've been selectively pruning away all of the branches that were coming up on the house side. And so in time, it started making the palm go a little crooked, favoring the side with all the weight. So it has at least cleared the roof. So when it gets taller, it won't touch the roof. Palm fronds can be detrimental to your shingles, especially in hurricanes, because the winds will whip them around and bust up your shingles. So in any event, that's why there's such a bend in that particular palm. So it is possible through selective pruning to shape your palm. The little bed around David is doing well. Of course, I told you I watered everything yesterday. I see some new growth. Too early for flowers, it's just new growth there. My Canary Island date palm, let's see if I can take a picture without the sun in the way. It is coming back. It's about time to fertilize. I have to fertilize January, February, March is once. April, May, June. So I probably need to fertilize around June, so it's coming up. And that takes about 15 pounds of fertilizer. Well, it depends what kind, because it goes by the diameter of the trunk. So I need to order me some fertilizer. Here you can see some white stuff on the ground. What that is fungus. That spot used to hold a huge old oak tree, probably 100, 150 years old. Well, maybe not that much, 100 years old. It was so wide that I couldn't put my arms around it, but a storm came and it split. This palm, Serenoa repens, was near the base of the tree. And when they cut the tree down, they dropped all the branches. This poor Serenoa was only about, I'd say it was about 3 foot tall. It was absolutely pounded flat to the ground. And it came back. I was surprised, but it came back because they dropped huge chunks from high onto that. I had to decide what to save and what to let go, because they had to drive big trucks back here. So they basically took this fence down, and I used to have an arbor there, and I had two beautiful, before the loquat, I had two beautiful, I forgot the type of magnolia. It's the magnolia that has little bitty flowers, smells of juicy fruit gum. But I had two of those in like a little archway around that chair. This has always been a secret corner for me. I always wanted it to be in the shade. But life goes on. They drove the truck through and then things recovered. I was happy to get the old oaks out of here. Of course, now I have full sun. Although the bees love this, I think I'm going to have to snap this down because it's getting a little too heavy. And I've got it staked up, but even with the stake, it's starting to get a little sloppy. So they'll have to settle for the paler pink blooms or lavender blooms down there. You notice he doesn't really care for those. He likes the blue. Aspidistra is still, not Aspidistra. The, it's falling apart. Alstroemeria is still blooming. Back in here, everything is nice and thick. You can see some trumpet vine coming through the fence. I'll have to prune that out. It will take over a fence and rip it apart in time. My neighbor had it behind this fence years ago, and I've been fighting it ever since. Back in here, you can see my oxeye daisies, not lazy Susan, black-eyed Susans. That always reminds me of my grandmother Mary, my father's mother. She used to have bunches of them all around in her front yard. Lantana is holding its own against the onslaught of the Wandering Dude, but I do have to keep pinching the Wandering Dude back. I am going to trim up these white jasmines. Oh, I got a new piece of kit, as the English would say, this week. I went to Lowe's. Of course, you can get them anywhere. But I got a little battery-operated set of hedge trimmers. The blade is only 9 inches long, very light. It also has a grass clipping attachment that you could pop in instead of the hedge trimmers, but I don't use that. I wanted it for the hedge trimming purposes. And I loved it, so I have been trimming up lots and lots of things. Blueberries I've been eating as I was watering yesterday. I got a good handful of blueberries out of this. I do see I have to stake this or bend this up. I guess a bird or something got onto it and was bending it downward. But yet there are still more blueberries to come. That angel's trumpet is a peach one, and it's doing extremely well. It's over my head now, so it's got to be about 7 feet tall. And I did notice that the pink ones that I got from my neighbor as cuttings are now, they're about maybe 4 or 5 foot tall. I'm putting off bringing my palm and putting it on that stump because I want those angel trumpets to be a little taller. I have a ponytail palm that spends its summer out there. So yeah, this whole area is filling in nicely. You can see the vincas are doing nicely in the pots. And the other good thing about the vincas is they all look about the same, although they're in various shades of light, or various strengths of light. So vinca is a good plant if you want to have it for symmetrical purposes around your yard and you have shady spots and sunny spots. Doesn't do real well in full shade. It's got to have some sun. And the vinca I bought, I do like the look of that little fountain. I got that fountain for my birthday. I bought it for myself from an antique shop. I liked it because it looks like seashells and it has seashells in it. Didn't know what to do with it, so I just stuck it there. I was going to get a bigger basin for it at some point, but the turtles and animals seem to like to drink from that. That's the first place Miss Mimi comes every day. The water level goes down quite substantially because it takes water to make the waterfall flow. If I were to stop that, in other words, the water would come back up to the top. My ligularias are not wilting. They're being overrun. I do have to thin them out. This is the garden where the caladiums are going to go in between the boxwoods. And here, I cleaned up all the sticks because the daylilies have gone past. And so, because of the heat now, the pansies are failing. And so this is the garden where I've got the dozen white vincas. So I figured we'd have white vincas here, and then we'll have the white and green caladiums tucked in between the boxwoods. This has really gotten sunny up in here now that we've cleaned things up some. This statue is actually a fountainhead. It actually has a tube coming out the bottom. My intent was to hook it up as a fountain, but it'd be too much. I have too many fountains and too little of a spot, so I just decided to have it there for show. and have the fountains be the two that I have going now. Let's see, here's the original Iochroma that I took the cuttings from that made it through the winter. And this hydrangea just keeps getting more and more beautiful. The flowers do seem to last forever. Cut them and bring them in, and you're lucky to get maybe a week out of them, if not just a couple of days. Well, Gato doesn't look like he came to his water bowl yesterday. It's not dirty inside. He may have moved on. I did buy some more succulents this week. I got these. They were in the second-hand aisle of plants, which I always like to go through, and I decided I'd try putting some more succulents in there. Oh, the other thing that happened here is I got rid of the pansies. They just flagged too much, and I decided they looked too pitiful. And I got some yellow lantana. You have to be careful when you buy lantana. Read the tags. This one's only supposed to get about 20 inches tall. Some lantanas will get 6 feet tall, the old-fashioned kinds. And I love the lantana in pots. I remember, ooh, someone's in there, window. I remember as a child, I was probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. My grandma Mary, my father's mother, had a daughter that lived in Huntsville, Alabama. Her husband was in the Army, and they sent her for Mother's Day a lantana, a yellow lantana, similar to that. And back in those days, you couldn't get plants everywhere. You had to go to a nursery for plants. They didn't have them in the grocery stores, and there were no such things as Lowe's and Home Depot. So it was a rarity to see that up north in New York. And I remember as a child brushing my hands through it, and it smelled so good. And the flowers smelled so good too. They smelled very citrusy. So it brings back a lot of memories when I see lantana in a pot. You can see the fruits are coming. Thank God most of them fell off on my Satsuma. Back in here, I did trim up this camellia a little because the winds kind of flayed it out. I will thin some of that palm back in there to open it up, get some good airflow going. You do, in this kind of heat and humidity, you do kind of want to keep air flowing through, otherwise you might have problems with diseases if the air gets too stagnant. Gosh, this mandevilla looks beautiful with the orange throat. I never noticed the orange throat before. That may be the flower of the week. It's amazing how you pass by something every day and don't really see it. Here is, I'm going to have to put stakes up or ropes or something, but there is my air potato coming back from last year. This one likes it better. It's a little bit sunnier. I have 2 air potato. Oh, here's one coming up from the ground over here. I have 2 air potatoes in the garage. I have them in a pot, and they've already grown. Well, they're just laying in a pot. I mean, they're not planted in anything. I took them there so they wouldn't freeze, and they have wrapped around my hand truck and the shelves that I have in there, because I have metal shelves. So I need to do something with the 2. They're already about 6 foot off of the ground. Ooh, almost fell off the sidewalk. Gotta be careful where I'm walking. Cleomes are in bloom today. They do have, I kind of forgot, it's been a while. You might not want to have them right up in your face. They have kind of a faint scent of skunk. But they are pretty. I don't believe they were in bloom last week. And of course, I don't talk about them that much, but the leaves of the Lenten roses are still there. This one is the reddish one. They're still there, but of course they do droop downwards. That one's starting to brown off already, which they'll do eventually. I still remain hopeful. That's why I have a stake there. There is one more Lenten rose there. You can see one leaf coming up. I had to straighten up my bottle tree. I didn't want the spirits to get out of the bottles. All the bad spirits that get trapped up inside the blue bottles. I was always told it was witches, but that's not a politically correct statement anymore. We'll just say evil spirits get caught in those bottles. This clump of coleus is still doing well. And my trout lilies, no, toad lilies, are doing. I think I'm going to buy some trout lilies because I say it so much. I believe they will grow in this area, in this zone, 9A. I have to clean out some of my Nandinas. They're spreading again. I cut them once this year, but of course they're coming up again. And we moved the Datura to over here. I had put it in too shady of a location. It didn't like it, and the bugs ate it up. So we moved it to there, and it was wilty, but I see today it's doing okay. It should like the full sun. I also cleaned up my Australian tree fern. Now you can actually see the big, I should say, croziers coming up from underneath. We worked over the front gardens this week. I cleaned up the potager and just did a lot of general housekeeping here in the front. Gardenias are still in bloom. Here you see I've got that's where the Datura was. And you can see I transplanted some of my ginger lilies. They are more tolerant of the full shade. And we moved some of the Kimberly ferns to fill it in back there. We do use the hose. I use the hose and the electrical outlet. So I wanted a path, but I didn't want a pathway. So I compromised, and being old, I bought these 2 shepherd's hooks just to grab onto so I don't fall over while I'm stepping over the hedge. A novel use of shepherd's hooks. Back in here, everything is looking good. I've got my first coneflower blooming. How are the figs doing? A couple of figs are still good. 3 figs I see. There's one back in there. And then 2 here. That is a black fig. I think it's black Italian. I also cleaned up some here. This area still has yet to be done. I was going to do it this morning, but I've gone for groceries. And then I figured I'd take this video today, so I'll do it another day. I did, with my new kit of the handheld trimmer, I went ahead and kind of got these azaleas, the Encores, to a more uniform size. I kind of want to let them get floppy and sort of be like clouds, but I really wanted them all about the same height. And I weeded this bed. We're going to work this week on thinning out the monkey grass. Well, this is another version of monkey grass. This one has the broader leaves and it has the flowers. This is really lily turf, but you can see it spreads out of where I want it to be. So we'll just take a shovel and thin it down some. I did go ahead and bind my white Rose of Sharon. I don't know if you should be able to see the rope. Had to get a hefty chunk of rope in order to do that. So it is no longer columnar. I have now made it fastigiate. Now that you know that term from last week. And once again, fastigiate means it's narrower than long. The diameter should be in a ratio of 1 to 10 to its height, versus columnar is 1 to 5, so it's a little fatter. Here's where I did most of the cleaning this week. I cleaned out and didn't touch the camellias because I don't really want to touch the camellias. The only ones I did touch, or one that I touched, was I had to clean this out a little just to get to the bird feeder. I still have to thin this out yet, the loropetalum. But this area has been cleaned. I got a huge garbage bag full of just bits of nandina and weeds and other things. I also took my new hedge trimmers to the ligustrum hedge. I've cut about 2/3 of it and have to finish. Years ago, for those of you that are new, I used to have 3 trees on the other side of the, where the sidewalk is, in other words. And the city came in and took those trees out. So this was an inner layer. I had planted azaleas, and then I planted the loquats. And on this side of the loquats, I put a hedge of ligustrums. And I want the hedge of ligustrums to be tidy. I want it to be rectangular. I want square corners. But I want my camellias to be floppy, and I want the azaleas to be like cloud-like and floppy. So, but if you let the hedge get cloud-like and floppy, you wind up with a mess. So that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. This is where I stole a few of the ginger lilies from. The winds definitely knocked down the camellias, and I was going to trim them, and then I got to thinking, no, this is a camellia garden, so I want the camellias to be more dominant, so I'm letting the camellias, except where I need to get at things like the bird feeder, I'm letting them kind of do their own thing. I also went here and trimmed these hollies. These are, I think they're called pencil hollies. I got them on sale quite a few years ago at the end of the season. So they were a little fatter, and I made them fastigiate as well. So that way you've got one over there, one here, and one there. And I stopped trimming the ligustrum hedge right about here. So that still needs to be done, and the end needs to be messed with. I was reluctant to get in there just yet because you can see my hydrangea has got lots and lots and lots of buds. But this is the one that's very fragile, so when I get in there, I want my wits about me, and I want to be very careful, and I've got to be particular where I put my feet so I don't bust up my hydrangea. Here you can see the cassia is now about, it's probably grown about 6 inches since last week. Excuse me. I had a tickle in my throat. And here's where I moved one of the African irises. That was where the devil's trumpet, or datura, was planted. The cycad is doing really well. It's finally leafing out, and I've got camellias planted, not camellias, I've got caladiums planted under there. Here you can see the seed pods of the lilies, crinum lilies. But yeah, it's looking pretty good over here. The crinums are still doing well in the front. They actually got taller this last week. No new shoots, flower shoots or stalks, but they got much taller. They're starting to go by. I don't know if you can make out the red stripe through them, but that's what makes them milk and wine lilies. They've pretty much done their thing, so they're going to be nice and green for the rest of the year. This clump of bananas is doing well. And this fire chief, well, that's its name, what arborvitae, is not as good as the other one. I've got a feeling dogs may have peed on it. Pee is a good fertilizer, but it's very strong, so you do want to dilute it. You can use it around in your plants. Just don't put it on your plants unless it's diluted. Here's the other fire chief. It will turn red in the sun, but I like the yellow, green, and or red, whichever one it chooses to be. Oh, let's show you these flowers on the Opuntia. The sun is now off of them. They are gorgeous. Here's my hand next to it, so you get an idea of size. I never really noticed before they have all those nice little stamens inside there. I think they have a slight scent. It smells kind of like a powder. But these will only last one day, and then they will look like that. There's one and one. That's why I wanted to do this video today, just to enjoy the blossoms. Here the snapdragons are still doing well. Actually, here you can see the rope that I had to put on my evergreens. That storm we had a couple of weeks ago, the winds kind of toppled over, not over, but they bent these junipers. That is the one bad thing about evergreens in the south, at least in zone 9A, is they become sails in the wind. I had a hedge of Leland cypress in the backyard. It was to one side of the garage facing it. It's now, of course, been replaced by the Satsuma and other things, but it was a beautiful hedge. It grew about 15 feet tall, nice and thick, and then we had our first Category 1 hurricane, and it bent it over, literally laying flat on the ground. And that's one of those cases, if you have a Leland cypress, I would not advise planting a Leland cypress out in the open in the south. Although they sell them, they'll do really well, but the first wind is going to come and bend them over, and you can stake them. You can drive iron stakes and wooden stakes and rope them up to your heart's content, but they will never stand up again on their own. So if you hide the stake, that's fine. Fortunately with these, now that I've pruned them into, well, they are more fastigiate, since we have that word. I did shape them a little bit, but they pretty much keep this shape on their own. These junipers will straighten up again, so probably in another week or so I'll remove the rope. But come the next storm again, they're going to bend over. So I've been told that when wood bends like that, it strengthens it. So it's good when you see a tree bending back and forth in the wind, because it's strengthening the branch. So hopefully, by straightening it up and letting it grow and letting it bend again, it'll bend less and less. That's my plan, at least. I did cut back here very hard the lemon balm, which exposed the flowers on my Mexican tarragon. This one supposedly likes the heat and humidity and has that same licoricey scent or flavor, so it's made for the south. Trim back the dill. Finally cut out all the foliage of my paper whites that are in these pots. And trim back some of the herbs here and there. I do try to keep the flowers off of my Thai basil. Same thing with my regular basil. I like to cut it back so that it does not flower. It'll last longer if that's the case. And let's see, I guess that's about it. My bunch onions. I do need to start harvesting some of them. I have to make some. I make a Chinese soup, Westlake beef soup. You can Google the recipe, it's really easy to make. But I'll use some of the green onions for that. And that's about it for today. My crepe myrtle is greening out nicely. Hasn't bloomed yet. I do smell the dill. I don't know why, but the dill is very fragrant today, even with all the gardenias. So let me leave you with a picture of my Opuntia cactus. So I hope you all get to enjoy your gardens this week. And I will see you again next week. Oh, there's a bee working this over. So until then, take care. And I wish you all a happy Memorial Day.